The 2025 Women's Euros is here. In preparation for the tournament, we're analysing every single nation. Now we're on to Finland. It's time for the last team in Group A as the Finns swap the land of the thousand lakes for the more moderate temperatures of Switzerland. In this video, we discuss why Finland are the most unpredictable team at this summer's tournament and what they need to do to cause an upset in Group A. This is our Finland Euros preview. So let's get into it then. Today we're going to be talking about Finland, the last team in Group A, and their chances at this summer's European Championships. And let's start then by talking about their pedigree in the Euros, Harry. It's their fifth tournament. They were at the last tournament in 2022, but they're knocked out in the group stage. They reached the quarter-final back when they hosted the tournament in 2009, and the semi-finals in 2005 then. So they come into the tournament with a fair bit of experience.
Yeah, they've done really well. They've done nothing before the turn of the millennium, and we hit the 2000s, and they've now qualified for 5 of the last 6 tournaments. The only one they missed out on was 2017, and obviously one of them they did get there because they were hosts. That was automatic, but still, it's been a really good run for Finnish football. They've done well at some tournaments. As you say, I thought the semi-final run was brilliant. The quarter-final season where they were host was a pretty good tournament.
They deserve to host it. Yeah. So oftentimes you get hosts who get knocked out in the group stage, and then it's not really worth them being there. But
yeah, losing to England in that game, that was a Farrell Williams brace and an Eni Aluko goal in a 3-2 classic. But they've done well. Recent times hasn't been so great. As I said, they missed out on 2017. They were grouped in 2022, losing all 3 matches. So a bit of a point to prove going into this tournament, but a side that over the last 2 decades have definitely been on the up. And they'll be hoping that they can try and do something at this tournament. But they are a side that I think they're in that weird period of time in terms of their football. We've got sides like Norway who are now competing in their 13th tournament. There's Sweden who have been in all 14 editions of the Women's European Championships. But then on the flip side, you've got other sides who are coming in for their debut tournaments. Finland kind of sat in the middle, going into their 5th tournament. They've been on a really good run of qualifying pretty consistently, and they'll be hoping that this year potentially they can get back into those quarterfinals, get back into those knockout stages.
If ever there's a tournament not to have your star player with a cruciate ligament injury, it's probably this one for Finland.
Yes, that is a big blow, and that's not what they wanted.
With any luck, Jutta Rantala might be back, but we've not seen her in Nations League fixtures, and at the time of recording, the Finland squad isn't out yet, so we're not sure if she's going to be called up. That would be a big blow, though. A crucial player really for Finland and their only real chance of scoring goals in this tournament. So that will be a big loss if they don't have her. They do have other talents though, as we'll get on to later in this episode. Let's then talk about how they got here then. Qualifiers in Group A didn't go, or League A, however they call it in the UEFA section now. Didn't go to plan, but they did come through in those knockout games.
Yeah, they did all right. They had a tough group. They were in the Italy, Netherlands, and Norway group, and they did struggle. Obviously, that's a ridiculously strong group, and that would always be difficult to get out of. And then they got into the playoffs. They battered Montenegro. What a surprise! And then the Scotland game was a really interesting one. That was, I believe, it was 0-0 in Scotland. Went away to Finland in freezing temperatures. They're clearing snow off the pitch before kickoff. And they managed to turn it over, but that they used the home advantage superbly in that match. Yeah. Scotland, although it is cold in Scotland, it's not as cold as it is in Finland.
Well, I think their defenders literally froze when Finland came forwards. I watched the clips and the defenders just didn't move. That's why they scored.
Finland did well to win that game. That's why the playoffs
absolute
are there.
Screamer as well from Koyuka.
Yeah, and it was a good game, and I think that was a big moment for them because suddenly, as I said, they've been on a good run, but if they'd missed out on this tournament, that would have been back-to-back tournaments where they failed to qualify, and that would have been a pretty disappointing. So they did well to battle hard against a Scotland side that has quite a bit of quality.
Well, it's probably a stronger team, so I think Finland did it immensely well to get through that game.
Again, as I said, I think they played it perfectly. That they held it goalless in Scotland. They went away where they knew they'd have the home advantage and the snow and the freezing temperatures of Oslo, not Oslo, that wrong place. But they did very, very well to win that game and to get to the proper tournament where, I mean, it'll be a bit warmer in Switzerland, but they'll be hoping they can try and make a good go of it.
Yeah, indeed. Recent form, really strong coming into this tournament. 6 Nations League fixtures, 1 loss, 3 wins, 2 draws. Admittedly, it is, of course, League B that they are in, but that's still positive. I think you'd rather be a side who were far and away the best team in your Nations League B group than play in the Nations League A and get smashed.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think they come into this one with a lot more confidence.
yeah, the only reason they're in League B now is because they finished bottom of the qualifiers and got knocked down from A to B, but they have done well, as you say. And I think that it is important that they would have, if they'd stayed in League A and they'd have played Italy, Netherlands, and Norway again, it'd be completely pointless. They'd have been smashed by them all again, and then they got into this tournament really low and not on good form. They couldn't have tried out any new formations because they're playing against 3 really good sides.
But again, it goes both ways though, because if they play against those top oppositions, we'd probably have a better idea of how they're going to play at this tournament. Because when they played against those sides, they tended to operate with a 5-back. But when they played Belarus, they played a 4-back, and they played a much more aggressive system. Now, I think if they play that way against some of the sides at this competition, they might struggle because the way you bridge that quality gap is tactically. So if they are the more defensive side, like we saw back in those qualifiers, like we saw in the Scotland game, if they do play more defensively, I think that will benefit Finland. They try and play this aggressive style they did in the Nations League. That probably won't work for them at this Euros.
Yeah, I do think that Nations League was overall it was really strong. I think there were some games where they got a little bit fortunate in, but again, I think what we saw in the Nations League and what we saw in those playoff games is that what they do is they use their home advantage so well. They're really strong at home, and I think that's all good. Nothing wrong with that. It means you do well in the Nations League, gives you a chance in qualifiers and in international fixtures. But when you come to a tournament and it's not in Finland, then can they make that adjustment? I think the conditions.
They're going to try and get their gains moved up into the Alps.
Yeah, because they're used to playing those conditions. They get a big support. Hopefully there'll be a good few travelling fans for Finland, and I think that they'll hope to make a good go of it. But yeah, I think that their home form is good, but overall the performances, the need to the games they've played away haven't been extremely good, and I think that with this difficult group, it will be interesting what they can do. But that they could surprise us. They're here and they deserve to be here, and they're potentially they could surprise a few people.
Yeah, and a lot of the goal scoring buck then will fall on as well. Linda Sahlström, if they don't have Jutta Rantala, and maybe Francie as well. But they're going to have to be very difficult to beat, I think, rather than looking to beat other teams, and then see what they get from those games. But if they can make it very difficult to score against them, as we expect them to do so, then look to spring the ball forward quickly on the counter-attack, maybe they can surprise some of these teams. They're in a group full of bottlers. Yeah. So I think they'll look at that, like 3 teams who on paper have better quality, but 3 teams who consistently just... Iceland can't get games over the line, and Switzerland and Norway are always expected to go further than they do. So if they can just surprise those sides, maybe they'll get out of this group stage. But it's going to be a tough ask to get Finland back to where they were a decade or 2 decades ago. Right, let's talk tactics then. I feel like Finland are the side I have the least idea what they're going to do at this summer's tournament. If we have a look at the screen here, I've set them up in this 5-4-1 shape. I've done this because this is how they played back in the qualifiers. However, in the Nations League, against weaker opposition, they have played a very different shape. They've tended to go for something like a 4-3-3 or 4-3-2-1, where those wingers are very narrow. So I don't really know how Finland are going to play at this tournament. My expectation is they'll move back towards this 5-back shape, because that was how they got results against the likes of Scotland in order to get here. I think if they're looking to get wins against those top sides, this is more likely how they're going to play. And actually, when you look at how they look in attacking areas, it's very similar to the other shapes they use. So I think we'll see them line up in this shape. If we look at how they'll move into attacking areas, then this will be 5-4-1 out of possession. When they've got the ball, it's going to look more like a 3-2-5. Now, oftentimes they don't have settled possession. If they do have settled possession, this is how it's going to look. We'll see Sahlström as this central figure getting high. Franzi and Erling will push up as the wingers into these half spaces. They're players who are very comfortable operating in those areas. 2 players who are more attacking midfielders and winger type roles, playing as these sort of wide midfielders in this deeper system. But when they do get a chance to come forward Erling and Franzi very comfortable operating in those tight spaces on the edge of the 18-yard box. Wingbacks get super high. Emma Koivisto, very talented player. Leitola as well, players who can contribute massively in this final third. Koivisto, fantastic crosser of football. They can execute those balls into Sahlström. That's going to be really dangerous for Finland at this tournament. I think as well, this midfield partnership is really nice. You've got Summonen and Siren, two players who've seen perform really nicely in the league this season. I think Summonen is key to how they're going to play at this tournament. It tends to be this 3-2-5 shape. What I like quite a lot about this Finland side is the rotation. So oftentimes we'll see Tanila get a little bit higher to support Leitola in this position, and Summonen will drop back into these sorts of positions. Now, you might think that's not a great use of Summonen's ability, but actually, from here, she can control the game. She'll play these long balls out onto Koivisto on this side. She'll play a chip ball in behind. She'll try and pick out Leitola in this sort of space. So Summonen can really direct the game from there. Picture a conductor of an orchestra, not front and centre of the game, not the focal point, but will happily sit back and play these passes. And I think in that role, she's absolutely crucial. So it'd be very interesting to see how they do set up. My concern is that we've not seen this perform against top oppositions. And I think in transition, this back three of Koika, Nystrom and Tanila, as much as I think they're good at box defending, when they're defending transitions and they've all got to sprint back, I would be concerned about that against some top sides, especially considering they've got the likes of Switzerland in their group. Switzerland are a very good transitional side. I would be concerned about Finland on the break. However, we don't see Finland have settled possession much. Oftentimes, they are going to play this deeper role where they'll have this back five and they'll look to be very solid, make it very difficult to sort of break into their penalty area. This four in front of that then as well, blocking those passing lanes, playing through Switzerland, playing through the lines, very difficult. Oftentimes, they're going to look to counter-attack. So what they'll do is look to break quickly. I really like Sahlström's movement. So whichever side the ball is on, if it comes out to this left-hand side with someone like Leitola or Tanila, comes to the right-hand side with Koika or Koivisto, Sahlström will run to that side. Now, this is really interesting. Obviously, that means she often links up with players like Erling and Koivisto if they're attacking down the right. But also what it then triggers is Franzi. So when Franzi sees this Sahlström run, she'll make a burst into this sort of position and take up this role. And so you get this sort of this 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 shape made in a different way. So we've got a lot of fluidity in attacking areas rather than it being a rigid structure. Because of Sahlström's movement across this front line, we often see her picking out areas pick up the ball in these wide areas and other players making the runs to accommodate for that. So Sahlström will pick up the ball here and break away with it. Now she's got Franzi making a run to the middle and Leitola busting a gut to get involved in this attack. So yeah, lots of fluidity, which you don't really expect from a side who look to play defensive football. Finland will look to be behind the ball for a lot of the game. In terms of players they're going to miss at this tournament, well, the big one is Jutta Rantala. I think she's a difference maker. If she is fit in time for the tournament, which at the moment is looking very doubtful, she could make the difference. She'll come into this position that Erling's playing on this right-hand side. What Rantala gives you is someone who can create something out of absolutely nothing. She can pick up the ball here on the field, dribble past a few players and score a goal. She's perfect operating in this half space. Koivisto overlapping. I think that'll be a really nice combination. It's gutting for me that Finland don't have Rantala or may not have Rantala at this tournament. She's a player who'd make an absolutely huge difference. I'm sure if she can get back to fitness, she'll be very keen to try and do so. For Finland, the biggest thing is their defensive record. They have only conceded 2 goals in the Nations League, so that's all their games in 2025. 2 goals conceded so far. Obviously, caveating that with the fact they are in a group with Belarus, Serbia. It's not a group, and Hungary, I think it is. It's not a group of high quality. It is a League B group. So we've not seen them tested, and that's my biggest fear. We've not seen how this Finland side plays, at least its most recent edition. We've not seen how they play against the top sides. And so that's why I'd have a doubt of them playing the 4-back. Because I just don't think you're going to get the same results. If it was to be the 4-back, it's not too difficult to map out that change. We'll see Olga Raatanen come into the side. We'll see either Koika or Tanila. For this example, I dropped Tanila out of the side. And they'll move into a 4-3-3. Now, as you can see, obviously that changes their out of possession shape a little bit. It becomes more of this 4-3-3. I think when they don't have the ball, they would probably drop Erling and play a 4-4-2 out of possession anyway. So I think it's going to function very similarly, but it's not going to be quite as tight a block. So rather than having a 5 back here, you've got a 4 back and then a front 2. So they've got to press a little bit better. We'll see how they play at this tournament. I think it's going to be the 5 back. It definitely could be this 4 back though. Again, it's very difficult to predict because we've not seen them tested against top opposition. When they've played the most recent fixtures, they've played a different shape, but that wasn't a representative game. I think if they are going into the Euros playing this way, I'd be worried because I think we'll see these players get dragged out of position and we'll see the shape then fall apart a little bit for Finland. So I would be concerned about that. I think they'll probably opt for a more safer system. But again, if they do play this way, it's going to look very similar in attack. We're going to see players like Erling and Franzi in these half spaces. What we'll probably see more of is Suominen dropping in. So we'll see this Arsen, Siren pivot, Loitola getting high, and then Suominen, like she loves to do, playing in this back 3, dropping into these sorts of positions. The fullbacks probably won't be quite as high, and then building up in or attacking in this sort of way. So they're very similar shapes in their attacking sense. I think they'll prefer to play the 5 back because that will be more defensively solid. And ultimately, Finland at this tournament have to be really mindful that they're probably going to struggle to get results.
Let's get into some predictions then. Starting with the groups, it's going to be difficult. They open the tournament. They are the opening fixture, Finland versus Iceland. Is there any chance that they can get something out of that game?
Potentially so. I mean, for a tournament opener, that is two sides who are really...
It's not the hosts.
Yeah, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. But the reason I laugh is because Iceland are a really, as we've mentioned now in both videos, Iceland are a very defensive side. Finland are a very defensive side. So it's a tournament opener between two sides who love to defend and really struggle to score.
It could look more like battleships.
Yeah,
They're both just sat in their own half.
No one's kicking the ball. They were just leaving it in the middle of the pitch.
I think Finland would take that. It's a draw.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think that when you look at this, that it is a winnable game. If they can find a way to win it, that'd be brilliant. But the way they got to look at it is when they turned up in 22, they were played off the park, didn't pick up a point, were beaten in every game, and were disappointing. This year, even if they don't get out the groups, get some points on the board, like Iceland did in 2022, where they didn't get through, but they didn't lose a game, and that was a disappointing
undefeated Euros
undefeated European Championship campaign. And Finland, I think it'll be good they get some points on the board. And well, if they beat Iceland on the opening day, maybe they've got a shot. Because as we spoke about in the other previews, Norway are historic bottlers and love...
In the last 10 years, obviously they've got 2 European titles now.
But they love throwing it away. And yes, they're host, but again, I haven't seen enough from them to suggest that they're going to be a really...
well, they lost all their home games in the Nations League. So it doesn't bode well for home advantage.
Yeah, so I think that Finland, it is a difficult group. I think what it's about this year is representing their nation and getting some points on the board. Doing that, obviously, getting there is brilliant. They've done their country proud. But if they turn up in back-to-back years and lose all 3 games again, they need to do better than that. For me, they need to get points in the group. And if they if you get a few points, you're going through. You can go through with 4 points. That's a win and a draw. And there's no reason why they can't do that.
Yeah, I think as well, my view of the group changes hugely based on whether or not Jutta Rantala does make the tournament. I think having a player who's a difference maker and a high volume creator and goal scorer is such a big thing in tournament football. So, because I think Finland can do enough to hold teams at 0-0. My doubt for Finland this tournament is where do the goals come from? I know Sahlström did well in the Nations League, but she hasn't put up goals consistently in qualifiers. I think, players like Francie, Erling, they can step up into these roles, but they're not Rantala, and that's the key thing. But they have still got good players. Evelina Suominen, top player. It's good to do really well from the base of midfield, be that dictator of the tempo. Maybe they'll get something out of the groups. I think, though, the problem is I can't see them top in the group. If they get second, huge achievement, but they will go and play probably Spain.
Yeah, it's one of those where what this tournament poses for Finland is an opportunity for someone to step up, for a new star to provide for them and to lead them out of the group. If they get out of the group, congratulations, a great achievement. Spain's a free hit. If you beat them, then suddenly you're the best team in the world and just go and win the Euros.
That's what Arsenal did. Beat them.
Yeah, just beat them. Simple as that. If you get them fine, just beat them. But overall, if Finland get out the groups, as you said, I don't think they'll top the group because I don't see them finishing ahead of Norway and Switzerland and Iceland. Well, actually, no, that puts them last. But if they are going to get out of the group, I don't see them topping it. If they get Spain, they get Spain, and they just have to deal with that in the quarterfinals. But I think they'll be more happy about the fact they're into the quarterfinals and who they're playing.
It's going to be a tough tournament, but ultimately the pressure's off for Finland. No one's going into this tournament saying, "Oh, Finland are going to go all the way," or even anyone who's expecting them to win a game. So the pressure is off. So Finland can run with that. They've got to take that belief into the games. The pressure's on for the other teams in this group.
Yeah,
Switzerland, home favourites. If they crash and burn, that'll be a huge disappointment. The pressure's on. Norway, failure over the last 10 years. There is pressure for them to get back to the top stage of that elite level. There is pressure on Iceland as well because they want to win games. But they've got a good squad now.
They should be, yeah.
And they'll be expected to try and get through. So for Finland, every game is a free hit. They've just got to do with the best of what they can and see what they come away with it. I think if there's any potential for an upset, that's the group I'm looking at, where something mental could happen because you've got so many variables and so many teams there who are quite close in quality. So I think that should be a good fight.
It's European Championships. There's always a surprise. And to be honest, I've got a soft spot for Finland because their kits are absolutely beautiful. Yeah. Their home and away shirts are absolutely brilliant. So just for wanting to see that kit more, I want to see them go deep. It is a lovely shirt, and I love the story behind it as well. It's brilliant about the history and the how it represents the country as well. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. The announcement video as well was class. So I just want Finland to do well because I really like that, and I think they are a good team.
Yeah, fair enough. We'll see what happens at this summer's tournament. Do join us for that opening fixture. We'll be live for every single game at this summer's Euro, so join us on this channel. That, though, is everything for this preview. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, get involved in the comments down below. Let us know your thoughts. Leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. To go and check out yesterday's video where we spoke about Norway, and in fact, we've covered all of Group A now. So you can go and check those videos out on the channel. And look out tomorrow as we preview Spain. That, though, is everything from us today. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.